When you listen to OG players like J.J. Johnson or Curtis Fuller, their turns sound very natural. And it's often, I've noticed, a stepwise downwards moving line where you go from a slide position further out to a slide position further in. But when you play a big band arrangement, the turns can sound a bit more, should we say, contrived. And we will take a look at some examples from the big band repertoire, but let's first go back to that beautiful Curtis Fuller line. It's from the Sonny Clark album Sonny's Crib, where Curtis is playing a solo over Speak Low. That's one of those solos I recommend you transcribe and learn. And in this particular line, he plays the turn between the C and the B flat. So what is happening there? Well, if we take a look at the other instruments, except for the slide trombone, when they play their turns with their fingers, valves or keys, they play a group of notes, a triplet or a 16-note phrase, and because they are using their fingers, it gets this nice snappy sound. If we take the example from Curtis Fuller's solo again, maybe they would play something like... And first of all, they play it much faster. It's hard for us slide trombone players to play that fast. And even if you can, it gets a much softer sound. So what we do is to use the natural breaks between the partials to get that snappy sound. And ideally, we will activate 3 different partials. Now remember, this is mostly an effect, so the exact notes on the top partial isn't as important as it might seem. In the Curtis Fuller line, we already have 2 different partials. So we just have to add one above the C. And when you're getting started with playing turns for the first times, I recommend also tonguing the second note. But then when you start to apply these turns to real music, there is often not enough time to tongue the second note, so you just create an air explosion instead. And then it sounds like this. Another fun example is the J.J. Johnson solo from Miles Davis' sextet recording of the tune Walking. Sounds something like this. A little bit over the top, but a great exercise. So you have a movement like this without the turns. And then you add a partial above each note. Usually neither JJ or Curtis ever overused the turns. It's very delicate and just embellishing the line in a specific place. But if we move forward a couple of years, we of course have Frank Rosolino, who could pepper in a lot of these turns in every solo. Now, I'm not an expert on Rosolino's technique, but it sounds like he kind of shortens the first note in the turn so that he has time to tongue the second note as well. Let's move on now to 2 examples from the Count Basie tune, the Queen Bee, which I guess most of us have played in a big band setting at some point. These examples were sent from Per Ivar in Norway. Thank you for the question. And now we need to use our ability to compromise and listen to how we fit into the surroundings. In both of these examples, there is a trumpet lead on top, and the trombone section is just supporting that. But let's first play the first examples as if this was a solo or a section solely. We want to activate 3 partials, so when we come to the A, we play that on the 6th position instead. So then we have the G and the A already on 2 different partials, and then we add a note above the A as well. Which also means that we play the B flat before the A on the 5th position, so we don't have to move the slide as far. And then it sounds like this. But since this isn't a solo or a section solely, we are just there to support the trumpet, and we have a voice somewhere in the middle. It doesn't have to have that snappy turn sound, so you might as well just play it regularly. Play the B flat on the 1st position and the A on the 2nd position. That way we lose a partial, but it's much easier to play and it gets a kind of a softer sound. Which might actually be better to not create some sort of unbalanced against the melody. The second example is even more forced and constructed because we have a turn going back to itself. I think if you listen to Count Basie's recordings of this tune, you rarely find a very clear turn in the trombone section. But let's just for fun create a real turn in this example as well. Now, if we go to the classical world, a turn like this would mean that you go stepwise up a note and then stepwise down a note and then back to the target note again. And I think it's something like that you have to do to make the turn go back to itself. So in this case it would mean the C above and the A below. And if we also want to involve 3 different partials, we play the B flat on 5th position, then the C on 6th position, and then the A on 2nd as usual. But the C will be more of a C sharp, I guess, because we don't really have the time or energy to go out to the 6th position. We just stay on 5th. As you can hear, it sounds kind of forced already, but the phrase would sound something like this. But if the whole trombone section play a snappy turn like this, the rest of the big band might turn to you and ask, "What the heck are you doing?" I actually think I would just play an inflection, like a rhythmical vibrato, like this. Sounds so much more natural, right? And it's not in the way for the trumpet melody either. Sometimes you see other symbols for turns. I think I remember seeing kind of like an upside down V, for instance. And also sometimes the actual turn is written out in 16 notes or something like that. I think it's always best to go for what sounds the best and realize that you are a part of a larger context. I will link a free PDF of the Curtis Fuller and J.J. Johnson lines below. I hope you found this useful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.